Am I mogging? Fits in perfectly with today's video. Is looksmaxxing a sin? Not because lifting weights is evil, not because skincare sends you to hell, but because most of you aren't trying to improve yourselves. You're trying to justify your existence through your reflection, and that's where it collapses. Before we moralize anything, let's define exactly what looksmaxxing is. Looksmaxxing is the attempt to maximize your physical attractiveness through your face, through your body, through aesthetics, through discipline, optimization, and sometimes assumption. You do this by going to the gym, getting a diet, grooming, supplements, and for some, needles, chemicals, and extremes. Now listen carefully. Looksmaxxing is not unique. It's no different in structure than money maxing, status maxing, or follower maxing. So the real question is not what you're doing, but why you're doing it. Why do most men looksmax to begin with? Usually when you see men, when they're looksmaxing, it is not for their health, it is not for their discipline, not even confidence. Now that one's iffy. Some people do it for confidence, but that's not the main reason why they do it. Now, confidence also helps you in this, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But some people aren't being real with themselves when they say, I'm doing it just to build confidence. But they do it because they want to be acceptable. They want validation from the world. They don't want to feel invisible. See, men nowadays in our generation, we are seen to be invisible to the people around us. I don't know if I'm speaking for all men when I say that, but it seems like you're on your own a lot of the times, and that you have to be the one that succeeds, that you have to be the one putting the hard work, the one that has to bring everything together as a man. It's you're the building block of everything. And in this society, it's pretty bad because people ignore you if you're not either doing something with your life, or if you're simply just living just to live. People don't want to put attention to you because you're not an interesting guy. But if you have something going for you, attractiveness, money, status, whatever it is, then society decides to put attention to you. So I'm talking about all men, especially me when I was younger, when I'm talking about this. But that alone should make you feel uncomfortable. Because when your sense of worth comes from external approval, you're no longer acting, you're reacting. You're not becoming stronger, you're becoming more dependent. Let's be honest about what's happening. Men today are pinning needles, stacking supplements, frying their hormones, and obsessing over bone angles. Not to serve others, not to build families, nor to shoulder responsibilities. But just so strangers will look at him differently. This is not self-improvement. That is self-erasure dressed up as discipline. And it's happening because men were never taught what they're for. They're taught how they're perceived. Now, let's get this on a Catholic perspective. No, it is not sinful for a man to improve himself. A republic depends on a disciplined man. Civilizations are upheld by men who govern themselves. A weak, indulgent, undisciplined man is an easy one to rule over and to corrupt. Self-command is not vanity, it's a civic virtue. But here is the line that almost everyone crosses, and it's a hard line not to cross because whether you like it or not, you might end up on that line and you might be going too far beyond where you're supposed to be going, outside of that virtue, going into the worldly things, right? Self-improvement aimed at virtue, competence, and responsibility is noble. But self-improvement aimed for approval, applause, and validation, that is slavery. The moment your improvement only exists so other people can see it, that's pride entering you. That's your own pridefulness. That's you wanting to be seen, attention seeker. Your pridefulness is starting to enter you, and that's when it starts getting scary and pretty bad. Because pride turns into vanity, vanity turns into envy, and envy rots the soul. Here is the truth that nobody's going to tell you. You can have everything in the world that the world says will make you happy. The body, the face, the attention, the comments, and still feel empathy. Because the void doesn't come from ugliness, it comes from misalignment. You didn't fix the problem, you just polished the surface. And worse, you start believing the surface is you. It becomes sinful when looksmaxxing becomes your idol. Now, idol means the entire world revolves around it, okay? And I can testimony to this because I know it, because it revolved around my world at some point. And how do you know it revolves around your world? When your time, energy, and identity orbit your appearance. What do I mean by that? When your mood rises and falls with your reflection, when aging feels like death instead of transition. No beauty can outshine the soul, and nobody can carry a man who has no center. St. John, I don't know how to say his last name, so I'm going to put it here. I think it's Chrysostom said it blatantly. And I also got this off a video, which I'll put right here. Beauty does not reside in the body, but in the soul. And when the soul is radiant, it sheds grace upon the body. You reversed it. You end up putting your body and how you want your people to look at you first before even your soul. And that's where the problem comes in. And I was watching a video on this father who was talking about it, and it's really interesting. Basically, if you follow your body instead of your body following your soul, you start leading into those pleasures, and your body is meant to rot. Your soul is meant to perish, to thrive in eternity with Christ. It's ready to be resurrected with Christ. Your body is willing to go and rot with the worms. It's willing to get eaten up by the worms. It's worldly. It's going to go away at some point. The only thing standing between you and the worms is your soul and God and His mercy. You have to realize that your soul is what matters more than these looks, more than anything. When God comes and resurrects us from the world, when His second coming comes, it's very important that you understand that yes, these looks, they're cool and they're good, and if they help you improve, it's good. But don't make it your idol. Don't make it your everything. Don't start thinking without it you're nothing, because that's not true. If anything, even if they got taken away, you're completely fine. It should not affect your mood at all. Now, yes, there's going to be some days where you get a huge pimple and you're going to be like, ah, shoot, you might feel a little bit insecure. But there is no reason for that. Your soul is what matters to God and to everybody else. If they don't like you like that, they don't love you like that. And if they don't love you like that, okay, that's fine, you know? Let it be. You don't have to force people to love you. That's the way it is. And now, does that mean you don't love them? No, you don't hate them. You don't do anything to them. There's no reason to pay that payback. You know, Jesus said, when they slap you on one cheek, turn the other one and let them slap you again. And that's a very important quote, because like Jesus says, you know, let them slap the other one. Now, what I'm saying is don't let yourself get abused, right? Like, obviously, if they're treating you bad, get out of the area. But there's no reason for you, when you get slapped, to go and slap them back on the face. There is no reason for that, okay? Just move on with your life. They already slapped you. Go and move on. So I have a little story here it's a Roman story. This is not a religious story. It's about Narcissus. I hope I'm saying that right. The story basically goes like this. Narcissus is so obsessed with his own beauty that he rejects everyone else. As punishment, he falls in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. He can't possess it, can't leave it, can't stop sharing. He wastes away and dies. And where his body was, a flower grows, the Narcissus. They were saying self-obsession is a death spiral. He doesn't die because he's ugly. He dies because he's trapped watching himself. That's why narcissism exists. It's not confidence. It's a man who's so focused on his own image that he becomes sterile. He wasn't cursed because he was beautiful. He was cursed because he couldn't stop watching himself. He rejects others, rejects loves, rejects responsibilities, and as a punishment, he becomes trapped and frozen, unable to leave his own reflection. He wastes away, not because he lacked beauty, but because he was imprisoned by it. That's why narcissism isn't confidence. It's a man so consumed by his own image that he produces nothing. No legacy, no love, no fruit, just reflection. That story is very important because, like I said, it has a lot to do with looks, and I like it. Now, do I believe this guy exists? I don't know, right? I don't know about this one, but the story has a meaning behind it, and it's a very hard message behind it. Now, Christ does deliver a nice parable, which I'm also going to read. Christ delivers the same warning in the parable of the rich fool. A man builds barns, accumulates more, and finally tells him, relax, eat, drink, be merry. And God responds, not gently. You fool, tonight your soul is required of you. All that optimization, all that accumulation for what? If you're still trying to please men, Scripture is explicit. You are not a servant to Christ. Yes, athletes practice discipline, but discipline without direction becomes obsession. Now we're going to talk about it philosophy-wise, and here's how I think you should look at it, whether you're Catholic or you're not Catholic. Philosophy-wise, this goes for everybody, and I think I really like taking this from Tyler Durden, so if you guys get it a lot. Like I say, I think us Christians in general, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, whatever it is, I think you should be looking at Fight Club and the way that Tyler Durden talks about materialism and getting too attached to things, and take that and put it in a Christian format, which I'll talk about later in the channel. But it's so important to not be too attached to things. But let me move on to the philosophy. Now, philosophical, here's the part nobody wants to hear. The input you put in will never produce the output you want, because admiration does not create identity. It replaces it. If you're posting your self-improvement journey half naked online, be honest. You're not lifting others up. You're feeding off attention. So the reason why you're posting stuff online, if you progressing, I guess you want to say, of you looking better over the years, it's not because you actually want to help others out. You're not like, oh, here's some tips and, oh, I want to help you out, bro. Or it's not because you want men watching it, right? I mean, probably you do, but you don't want men watching it because you want to give them advice, you know? You want them watching so that way either you can get money off of them, you can get envy off of them, or you get attention off of them. Men and women. This goes for both, obviously, and in both attention and creators. You don't want growth. You want to be desired, and desire from strangers has never saved a man. The big thing is that you're still asking for approval, still begging in the mirror for identity, still letting society define your worth, still terrified of being insignificant. So you mutate yourself so strangers won't ignore you. That is not power. That is slavery with extra steps. If your value collapses when your looks fade, you never had value to begin with. You had decoration. A real man does not destroy himself to look better. He destroys the false self so something real can exist. Looksmaxxing preserves the false selves. Truth annihilates it. So, at the end of it, if you end the chase, you end the suffering. End the need to be special. End the fantasy version of yourself. End the approval economy. But if you keep on chasing these looksmaxxing, if you keep on chasing this perfect life, this perfect thing that you have planned in your mind that probably God doesn't want for you, but if you keep on chasing this idea of you being this amazing guy, girl, whatever it is, with money, girls, who knows, perfect life, family, health, and everything, right? You look amazing, both body, mind, soul, whatever it is, right? If you keep on chasing this, you're going to have endless comparison. You're going to keep on comparing yourself to others. It's not going to stop. You're going to have endless dissatisfaction. You're never going to be satisfied. You're always going to want more, always want more, more, more. People are going to say, yeah, that's a good thing. There comes to a point where it's like, no, that's not a good thing, because you'll never be satisfied. Yes, it's a good thing to improve, but it's not a good thing to never in your life and always feel like you're never satisfied. Always wanting more, more, more. That's not self-improvement, that's greed. Not to mention the amount of self-hatred disguised as the grind that you'll get. Yes, you'll be freaking grinding out whatever it is, but truly it's self-hatred. Truly you're getting up in the morning to fix your face or whatever, or you're going to the gym, and all of this is just because you don't like the way that you look. You're gonna break your bones. Okay, bone smashing is a little bit different, but like, let's say you genuinely go get jaw surgery just because you want to change how something looks, and your face is going to be messed up for years, and you might even die sooner than you were supposed to just because you did that. That doesn't make sense to me. It's genuinely just self-hatred, and it's not grind. Yes, it's a good thing to grind. I'm not saying no. I'm saying make sure that it's a grind and not self-hatred motivated behind it. Because yes, you can go and grind all these things out. You can go and start looksmaxxing. You can start doing all these things. But make sure you're not doing it for attention. Make sure you're not doing it so people can look at you and people can see you. Because it doesn't matter what people think, right? The only thing that matters is what Jesus thinks. What Jesus thinks of you. Looksmaxxing is amazing if you're doing it to show Christ, that you want to show how good his fruits are, how good Christians look, how bright they shine, how bright their shine is, right? It's important to dress well as a Christian because you need to show others how well dressed and how good you would look for Christ, because you're showing Christ's image within you. So it's good to improve yourself. Where it becomes a problem is when you start losing confidence, or when you start having mood swings all because of your looks. When you start wanting to have surgery because of your looks. That's not right, because your soul is beautiful. You don't need to change your outside just for attention or just because other people say some stuff. No. Yes, clean up the area that you're in, right? If you're in a room, for example, your face. Like, I'm using that as an example. If your face was a room, yes, clean up your room. But there's no reason to take down the walls and put this and put that and put that when it all is going to come crashing down and some other person is going to move into your room sooner or later, right? So make sure you have those fruits with you that make the room last forever, that make it something that people want to go into that room for. You want to make sure that room is filled with fruits, good stuff that people want to join into that room. People want to walk into that room feel peaceful in. They don't want to walk into a room, even though in the outside it looks so cool and fun. They walk inside and then that room is all filthy and dirty from the inside because it has so much self-hatred and so much things that we call discipline and looksmaxxing. No, you don't want to be in that type of room. Nobody wants to be in that type of room. Everybody wants to be in the fruitful room. Even if in the outside it looks bad, inside truly we know who it is and what it is inside. If you think you're being radical and going against the system by saying these things of subhuman or, oh my gosh, like, the system doesn't want us knowing this, or the system doesn't want us improving, and that's why we have to do looks maxing because it's the truth, or whatever it is. You're not being radical, okay? I don't know why you think people all genuinely think that, okay? But you're being the most obedient product to modern capitalism that has ever been produced. If you think you're going against the system by looks maxing, do I have news for you? You're going directly into what they want you to believe. That you don't look good enough, that you can't have confidence, that you need to have love, that you need to have all this stuff. You don't need to have anything except for Christ. You don't need to look good. Is it a good thing to have those virtues? Yes. But you don't need it. So I'll leave you guys with this question, and to sit with it and make you guys think. And I hope I answered the questions of, is looks maxing a sin? Basically the answer is yes, but it depends. The best way to put it is almost everything is a sin, but it's not about what you do, but why you do it. So to answer your question on looks maxing, is it a sin? It depends on why you're doing it. And it's a lot harder to go into looks maxing and say that you love Christ. Especially people like BP editors, where in the beginning of an intro or an edit, they put people that are what they consider ugly, subhuman, and then they edit them to somebody beautiful like Marlon or Chad or whatever you want to call it, right? And if you're doing it for that, obviously, even if you say, oh, I'm doing it for Christ because I'm going to get the money out of this and go donate it, do you think Christ wants you making fun of people? No, right? So it all comes down to what reason you're doing it for, and if that reason is truly a good reason, you know? Is it a good thing to teach people how to look better? Yes. Now, is it a good thing to look better and always trying to make sure that you look the best? No, like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Where it becomes a problem is when you become obsessed with it, where if you don't look good one day, you're like, oh shoot, nothing, like I'm worthless, because you aren't. And just because somebody doesn't want to looks max doesn't mean that he's worthless either. So it all comes down to why. And it all comes down to why. I'm going to leave you guys with a couple verses and then a question at the end. So our first verse is Corinthians 1:10. If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant to Christ. Then we have Corinthians 9:25. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. Then we have 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you've received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Now, I want to show this because people might be thinking, oh my gosh, so I shouldn't look smack and I shouldn't do anything in life in general. No, right? God doesn't want you to not be doing anything. No, and in this verse he specifically explains it. And this is one of the verses that people use for against tattoos and stuff like that. But I want to explain it right now to show that looks maxing could be a good thing if you use it to be a good thing. But it could be a horrible thing if you use it to be a horrible thing. So it all comes down to why you're using it. I don't think you should be on the other spectrum of things and on the other spectrum. You should be down the middle, and that middle part is perfect. I think our final Bible verse that I have right here is Matthew 6:3. But seek first his kingdom and right. And our final Bible verse that I have is Matthew 6:33. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. That I will leave off with on the video. And on my last thing that I'm going to tell you guys is a question for you guys. If you guys are starting to think about, should I look max? Should I do bodybuilding? Should I be focusing on this? I want you to answer this simple question. Are you sharpening the tool or just polishing the cage? So I want you guys to really think about that, okay? Because you have two choices. You can either get closer with Christ, sharpening the tool, or you can polish the cage and make it look nice, but it doesn't change the fact that you are in the cage. So yeah, that's it for today's video, and I hope I answered the question. Like I said, it all comes down to, it all comes down to why you're doing it. A lot of things come down to it on Catholics. It's not about what you do, but why you do it. And most things on looks maxing, I would say, is pretty bad, because from what I've seen, the why is always connected to attention, pridefulness, envy, lustful, whatever it is. It's always something bad. Of course, if that is not the reason why you're doing looks maxing, then go all for it and go out and maximize your looks. There's nothing wrong with that. Where it becomes wrong is when it becomes your idol. And that's everything for today's video. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe and like button. And yeah, looks maxing, is it a sin? Answered ish.